Hey, pal. Yes, you. Are you a gay man, a bi man, or simply a man who seeks intimacy with other men? Next question. Are you willing to travel to either Colorado or Kansas to go camping? And I don't mean like hardcore backpacking. It's more like glamping, more like summer camp camping when you were a kid. Definitely plumbing involved. And the last question. Do you long for connection, friendship, camaraderie with men like yourself? Well, if you answered yes to all three of those questions, I would like to tell you about two events that might be of interest to you. One is the Midwest Men's Festival, and the other is Rocky Mountain ManREACH. So we talked about the who, mostly gay and bi men, mostly. We talked about the why, in order to build community with other such men. Now let's talk about the what. What happens? Well, these events take place at campgrounds, so the usual campground attractions are available. There's always hiking, and the locations are beautiful. That much is always true. The Midwest Men's Festival takes place at Gaia Retreat Center. There's a lake there, so there's canoeing. Swimming in the lake gets a little janky, but I do like to take my chances and swim in the lake anyway. Manreach doesn't normally have water involved, but at some of the campgrounds there has been a swimming pool. There are also things like stargazing, which is a lot better to do in the country, away from the city lights. Other events are group events. There are games. Cards Against Humanity is always popular. My favorite is definitely Rummikub. And of course, there are icebreakers and getting to know each other kinds of games. They're not for everyone, but I love them, and I often run them. The nature of the activities does tend to be a little different between the two groups. The men's festival, as the name implies, leans toward the festive side of things. There's always a dance. There's always a talent show, or rather a no talent show. ManReach also has festive activities. We've had both dances and talent shows, but there's typically just one such event featured at a single gathering. Since ManReach does come from a tradition of HIV prevention and education, the daytime events run more along the lines of discussions and workshops. A typical workshop might address a topic like building strong relationships. Another might be about a specific health issue facing men. Now, don't get me wrong, there is a lot of crossover. These are just the tendencies, the activities that the groups tend to lean toward. Now, if all the activities were just lighthearted and topical, I might come back year after year, but I doubt it. I would need a little more to keep me truly engaged. And at both events, there is definitely more substance than just diversions and discussions. One activity that they have in common is the heart circle. Now, neither group claims to have invented the heart circle. The Billies in California have been doing it a long time. It's also done at North Florida ManREACH. Wherever it's practiced, though, it's always regarded as a very sacred event. At ManREACH, there is a heart circle every day of the event. At the men's festival, it's usually just one day, but it's still set apart from the other events. So what is the heart circle? For one thing, it's an opportunity to be heard. It's a time that a man can really lay it all out, bare his soul, speak his piece, and have an audience of peers. It's a place where he can really feel safe and supported and know that he won't be judged. Because there are typically a lot of men in the circle, it's really more of an opportunity to hear other men and bear witness to what they have to say. Yes, there is a lot of Kleenex involved. It can be a very emotional experience, but one that most men find very meaningful. Now let's talk a little bit more in depth about when and where. ManReach events have taken place all over Colorado, which is a pretty easy sell to outsiders. It gets a lot of tourist traffic. We have had our events all over the state, the Front Range, the Western Slope, but there's one place that we really seem to gravitate toward. It's close to Colorado Springs, not far from Denver, and they've been really good to us. That place is La Forêt. It's in the Black Forest, so it's surrounded by tall, beautiful pine trees. The weather is usually pretty moderate there. However, there was a gathering in June. I wasn't there, but I hear it ended up pretty unseasonably cool. They had to bust out the heavy coats and move some of the events indoors. So you definitely have to be prepared for anything in the high country of Colorado. The men's festival, as I mentioned before, always takes place at Gaia Retreat Center, which is just outside Kansas City. Just recently, we moved it to mid-September, and I, for one, am very glad of it. The weather is much better. There might be some rain, but nothing too bad so far. Kansas is a bit tougher sell than Colorado, but even me, a Colorado native going back 5 generations, I have to admit that it is pretty nice there. It's very green, very alive, rolling hills, thick forest, and the leaves are just changing at that time of year. I love the fall, so I really can't complain. As for the duration of the events, that's a different story. ManREACH is usually about 2 days long. A longer event would be 4 days with 3 nights in between. So if you're coming from out of state, you might want to spend the early part of your trip catching some of the other sites in the area. There's the Cog Railway that goes to the top of Pikes Peak. Guard of the Gods is free and totally worth it. There's the Royal Gorge, that's not too far. And then when you're done with all that sightseeing, you can spend the rest of your trip at the gathering. As for the men's festival, yes, it's beautiful, but it's not much of a draw for tourism. So if you're coming from a ways away, you would probably just spend most of your time, if not all of your time, at the men's festival. And as for that, there is plenty of time to spend at the men's festival. It's booked for a whopping 10 days, so you don't have to pay for all of it, just the days you plan to attend. Now let's take just a little bit deeper dive into what works for both organizations. One thing that they have in common is that they tend to be sober. ManREACH has always been a sober event ever since its beginning. The Men's Festival has wrangled with that issue, but in the end, they decided to allow alcohol. In my experience, though, it has always been used moderately, and I've never seen anybody sloppy drunk there. Another good thing they have in common is the way they manage money. There is no paid staff at all, so there's never any kind of profit motive lurking in the background. I like that both events are very affordable. The cost of attending the men's festival is very, very inexpensive. ManREACH is a little more expensive, but they do try to just cover the expenses. Now, here are some opportunities for growth between the two organizations. One thing both of them struggle with is promotion, and I think that's because promotion costs money. It's really just not in the budget, so they can definitely use some help getting the word out. Another issue that both of them face is that they are composed of familiar faces, the guys that come back every year. Now, to their credit, these are the elders of the group, the ones who really keep it all running, but recruitment of new members is absolutely essential. There are new faces that appear every year, but it's hard to keep them coming back for a second event. The solution to that? I'm not sure. Maybe the solution is to offer those new guys a scholarship, not for the first time they come, but for the second time, to really get them hooked. Here are some things I think the two groups could learn from each other. The men's festival relies a lot on tradition, and that's good and bad. It's good from the standpoint of planning. It makes the planning easy and the participants really know what to anticipate. It's bad from the point of view that it can be hard to break away from a tradition. Even so, I do think ManREACH could use a bit more tradition, especially if the event could always be held at the same place and roughly the same time of year. I think that would help build a reputation of stability and a more reliable following. Activities at ManREACH tend to be a little more official, and multiple activities don't usually overlap. I think that gives the activities more appeal, and the involvement is usually higher. I think the men's festival could learn from that. Some of the events just seem to fizzle out. One lesson that I learned over the course of both events revolves around the arts and crafts. At the men's festival one year, I was randomly invited to participate in a candle making workshop, and I snubbed it. My head just wasn't in it. Later, though, I really kicked myself. After all, I was there to do new things, to say yes to candle making. There was a consolation, though. I did end up with one of the candles, and I still have it. At ManREACH, the crafty activity was making an object out of chainmail, a keychain. But it was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. There was, however, one guy at the end of the table who was totally getting it. And that was all it took. I put my nose to the grindstone and figured out my own special way to make that keychain. It was a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. The real moral of the story, sometimes you have to jump in. Once you get started doing it, you'll get into it and you'll end up getting something out of it. The Men's Festival relies 100% on stewardship from its attendees. So if you go, you are expected to sign up for several chores. I clean the restrooms. I can do that without too much hassle. On the first day of the last festival, no one signed up for dinner, which meant we didn't eat. I could have signed up, but we'd have all contracted food poisoning and then we'd have had to get our stomachs pumped. Someone finally stepped up, but by that time I had already gone to town to eat. Anyway, the reliance on volunteers is good and bad. For first timers, it can be a little off-putting, going hours without dinner anyway. By the way, the menu there is strictly vegetarian. The recipes are good, but it does take a little getting used to. ManREACH has good food and reliable food service. I think that's more hospitable to the attendees, especially the new ones. I do think, though, that making the everyday tasks a group effort is a good way to build community and get buy-in. Also, the self-reliance does help a group maintain privacy. It's always a little distracting when an outsider, a staff member from the camp, shows up to take out the trash and get the dishes. Something about having the whole camp to yourself as a group is really liberating. It makes you feel like you have a safe home. Now back to the men's festival. Its organizational structure relies on consensus. I'm not a big fan of consensus. I think it's a bit too disorganized, and it favors the status quo a little too much. I think the men's festival could learn something from ManREACH in the way of organization. ManREACH has a steering committee and things are planned in advance. Speaking for myself, I'm okay with having a group of leaders. As long as I can elect the guys who are running things, I'm okay with it. I might not agree with every decision that's made, but if I'm not the one who has to attend the long meeting where the decision is made, I can definitely deal with it. I do love the spontaneity of Men's Festival. It does bill itself as an ongoing experiment. Even so, I think it could use a little more pre-planning. As to the constituency of the two groups, there are some notable differences. ManREACH does tend to attract average Joes. Though they are for the most part gay and bisexual men, they are also kind of straight-laced and conservative, at least as far as their behavior and appearance. The men's festival, to its credit, does tend to be a bit more inclusive. There's a bit more of an age range. Trans men seem to feel really at home there. Also, the Radical Fairies have always had a presence at the men's festival. If you have not been to one of their events, I do recommend going to at least one. There is usually an element of drag at the men's festival, definitely at the No Talent Show, and that's always a lot of fun too. Unlike ManREACH, the men's festival is open to heterosexual men. However, I don't think they get a lot of takers, not in my observation anyway. So how about you? Have you been to one of these events? Have you been to a similar event? Do you have any thoughts to share? Please do.